Okay, so we're going to switch libraries today. I'm going to show you a little bit of a different library called Matplotlib. And this is a library we're going to use for anytime we want to display things in a graphical way in a plot of some sort. And it's a really useful library for looking at data. So let me show you kind of how we do this. So as you can see, I've got my terminal up on the screen just to kind of remind you how we go through things. We're going to go CD to our desktop. And we're going to go CD to our machine learning folder. All right, so now we're in our machine learning folder. We want to activate our environment first. So we're going to say source venv /bin/activate. Okay, now remember we see this venv at the beginning, so now we know we're in our virtual environment, which is really important. So now we want to install using pip3 install. And remember, if you're on PC, the commands might be a little different, so you may need to look those up. But pip3 install, and we're going to install Matplotlib. Matplotlib, just like that. Matplotlib. Hit enter. I've already done this, so I also didn't spell install properly. But mine will go pretty quickly, saying its requirements are already satisfied and it's ready to go. Yours might take a little bit longer installing. Once you've installed, we're going to open up our Jupyter notebook. And here is our Jupyter notebook with our various notebooks in it. I'm going to go ahead and hop right back into the Pandas notebook where we had been working. Scroll down to the bottom. Hit Escape M to get my markdown language. And mark this cell as the start of our Matplotlib section. Okay, so as I mentioned, Matplotlib is primarily for us to do our plotting in. So to get this to work, first of all, we need what's called a magic function to make sure that this displays in our notebook properly. And that's going to happen by %, and then we're going to say matplotlib. Good. And we're going to write inline. And we're just going to then import in the same cell. We can import matplotlib as, and we're going to import it as PLT. Hit enter. That should run okay. Good. And actually, I realized that that was the first thing I've run since I reopened this file. So let me go ahead. I'm going to take out this line so we don't deal with this error right now. And I'm just going to run all. It may take a minute, but not too long, just to make sure we have everything the way we left it. Now I've run my Matplotlib in line, and I've installed my Matplot library. And actually, I don't want Matplotlib as PLT. I'm really just going to be dealing with pyplot. So I'm going to say dot pyplot, and I'm going to rerun that cell to make sure that that's PLT. Now, if I do PLT.plot, and I don't really pass it anything, I just want you to see what it looks like. And that's the kind of graph we're going to be looking at, right? That the X and Y axis will change depending on the data. It's going to do a lot of the work for us, but it'll draw it right in line like that. Isn't that nice? So let's go ahead. And then if we add in a, let's do PLT.show. We can also do it that way. Oh, PLT dot plot PLT dot show. Let's see. There we go. We can also do it that way. That's another way of getting our plot to display. And so how does this plot sort of take data and work? So in a very simple sense, you can basically pass it a series of data. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you remember, that's how we make our series. We just put them in those square brackets there. And we can hit enter. and it will plot 1, 2, 3, 4 on its line for us, basically just going up like that. It's also useful, though, to sort of get an X and a Y data. So if we were to say X equals, and we were to give it a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we were to say Y equals 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Now we can actually graph those kind of in relation to each other, and we just have to pass them into plt.plot x comma y. And if we pass it in like that, and it will make the assumption, obviously the first thing we want is the x, the second thing we want is the y, and boom, we get this nice plot. Y going up the side here, 10s by 5s actually, and then by 1s along the x-axis, actually going in by half markers. Okay, so we can actually there are other ways of creating plots. Let's go ahead and start looking at how we're going to make plots with our sort of data, and the appropriate sort of Matplotlib way of making the plots. So the first thing, we're going to import all our stuff like we did. We're going to make our data. So we've made our data. Now we're going to say we want figure and axis, and that's going to be equal to plt.subplots. We're going to pass it in a figure size, which is fig size equals, and we're just going to pass it in this tuple 1010, which is how we want our fig size. Okay. Enter. So that sets up the plot. Our plot is set up now for a 10 by 10 plot. Then we're going to do AX plot, and we pass it our data. We want to customize our plot, so we're going to say AX.set, and we're going to pass it some information. For instance, let's pass it a title, and that's going to be some data plot. We can pass it X labels so that it knows what to call the x-axis. So maybe the x-axis is students. And we can pass a Y label. Oops, that shouldn't be a period. That should be a comma. And maybe the Y label is let's say grade. Obviously, those aren't very good grades, all things considered. Finally, we want to save our figure. And we want to show our figure. So we're going to save our figure. And we can do that by passing it some storage information. So we're going to say, basically, in the folder you're in, save it under images, and we'll call this sample plot.png. Okay, and once we've done all that and we hit Shift Enter, we'll get this nifty graph. Students, grade, it's 10 by 10. It's called some data plot, which is perfect. Let's see, something was wrong with our file name. No such. Oh, okay. It might not want to, because we might not have a folder images. So let's try just doing that. There we go. So it'll just save it in the normal folder. And if we come out here and we look, it's right here on our desktop. Is it also in here? It's not. That's interesting. Okay. Well, it's right here on our desktop. Okay. And if we look at it, actually, you can see there it is. So we're able to actually save the picture out of the file, which is really nice. And that's pretty much the work we're going to be doing when we want to set this up. And you can play now with the data. You can play with the titles. You can play with the size. All of that is editable fairly easy for you. So now let's go ahead and start doing some more interesting work with our plots. But to do that, we're going to actually have to look at one more library, and that's the NumPy library, and I'm going to show you that next.